We're gonna start. I'm gonna call this. No. Okay, I'm gonna call this August 5th meeting of the Rules and Resolutions Committee and Ethics Board to order. We do have a quorum present. All members are here. Agenda item number 2, proof of notification. I know I sent it out. Did someone post it on the bulletin board? Looks like the clerk is saying yes. Thank you for that. Agenda item number 3, agenda approval. We have a 10-point agenda, so I'm looking for a motion to approve. Motion by Cosgrove.
Severson, second.
Second by Severson. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. That motion carries. We have an agenda. Agenda item number 4, previous meeting minutes. Looking for a motion to approve these.
Move for approval.
Motion by Seat.
Second.
Second by Severson. Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor of those, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. Thank you, Clerk Kalish, for doing those minutes. They're approved. Agenda item. Oh, go ahead.
Is this mic on?
It is on. Okay. Agenda item number 5, amending rule number 17, mileage and per diems. We have a couple items that are catching us up to the 21st century. So I'm going to hand it over to Clerk Kalish for this one.
You should all have a copy of the resolution and then the agenda cover sheet, which basically explains the intent of the changes to these rules. So as you all know, historically, per diems are on half sheets of paper that are turned in. So at the end of every month, there's about 50, 60, 70 sheets of half paper to wrangle. They come in through all times of the months, and it's a bit of a process to track all that paper down. So what I'm proposing to create efficiencies in the way that payroll is processed, in the way that per diems are administered for not only my office but for department heads, is that we move to an electronic format, which I provided you a copy of. So what I would like to see happen is that every month this electronic sheet be filled out and submitted to me instead of 50 million pieces of paper. What you probably didn't see on the Excel one, or if you did, this will all be driven by formulas with drop downs. So literally at the first day of every month, you can start a new spreadsheet. You will be able to list all the meetings you attended in their entirety for the entire month and submit that one sheet of paper instead of, again, department heads or anyone else having to give out all these little sheets of paper. So when that comes to me, I have a complete listing for each person claiming their per diem of all the meetings they attended, the dates, the amounts, all that is on there. So then when I enter payroll part, I can check that much quicker, and then Tammy can approve that on her end much quicker than what we have now. So this is really an attempt to, like Sean just alluded to, move away from stone tablets and chisels and move to an Excel format. I would have access to their iPads. You all have keyboards on your iPads to fill those sheets out if you need to, and then those are submitted to me. I would prefer the electronic submission just because it makes life a little easier and is quicker and it's just much more efficient. Should you choose not to use an electronic format, then you would be able to print out that spreadsheet as it is. You can handwrite your meetings if you really want to. The only thing is, like, the totals and stuff won't be calculated, but that's not the end of the world for me. What I want to see is all these per diems come in on one sheet of paper at the end of the month with a clear deadline stated in the rule too. So the first amendment would be to B of Rule 17, which I changed the word forms to say claims reimbursement form. Submission of the claims reimbursement form in an electronic format is preferred. The claim forms would be submitted to me no later than the last day of the month in which the claims were incurred. Claims submitted after that date will not be paid until the next monthly payroll cycle. For instance, for this monthly board payroll, Tammy and I had to redo that payroll 3 times as per diem slips comes in. If they come in later, it requires, other calc invalidations and all those things. So the rule didn't really explicitly state when they were due, but I would like to have a hard deadline. So this way we're all aware that if per diems are not, turned in by the last day of the month in which they're incurred, they don't get paid until the next month. So there's no, rush to get this done and not multiple validations of a payroll going through a bunch of different times. So, and then letter D then, I'm not sure the original intent of this rule as it was written, whenever it last was, but after Tammy Hendrickson, payroll Tammy, when we looked at this, we thought it was good to clarify for December that they need to be turned in by the end of the third week, because that does give us time to process everything and make sure that all those per diems are paid in the fiscal year in which they're incurred in as well. And typically there's no meetings the last week of every month. So, having that completed by the last week, I would hope wouldn't be a huge task, because there may be a meeting here and there, but historically the last week of the month is pretty light if there's any meetings. And then section E of that rule says the county clerk will literally list this entire thing and make it part of the board minutes. I can still do that. There's no statutory requirement that we do that. I did reach out to other county clerks and none of them seem to do that. So again, when this was written, I'm sure there was intention behind it, but I'm not totally opposed to doing that. If we're looking to streamline, publication costs and all these things, this would be one of those things that we don't necessarily have to do. And if someone really wanted to see this, we have an ongoing list. My deputy Tammy has compiled an ongoing list that will be updated with every payroll. So this information can be provided, as quickly as possible when requested. I don't see the need to publish it. I'm not totally opposed.
Yep, go ahead, Mr. C.
That the mileage and per diem statements and other expense reports of the county board are on file for public record in the clerk's office, and leave it at that.
Okay, well, let's first get a motion. So the clerk is recommending a motion to amend Rule 17 as follows. So let's get that on the floor. Motion by Cosgrove.
I'll second.
Okay, we'll do second by Severson. Okay, so now, Mr. Seep, you would like to make a motion to amend, I'm assuming, or what are you proposing?
Okay, excuse me. Maybe I missed something here because of problem with the two hemispheres of my brain. One, are there three issues here? And are you asking for three separate motions?
No, he's asking, we have one motion to make changes to Rule 17 under letters B as in boy, D as in dog, and then E. So Clerk Kalish has all those listed out as he's recommending to make the changes. He's also got a resolution attached, which gives the reasoning for doing this. And so I think what I'm hearing you say is that you're proposing that the clerk provide a notice that these are available somehow. Is that what you're saying?
Instead of incurring the cost of publishing in the paper all of these reports of supervisors' mileage expense and per diem expense, that you merely say that those items are on file with the clerk's office for public, as a matter of public record, and is available to anyone who wishes to see them. Wouldn't that make it simpler for you, Mr. Kalish?
It would. I don't necessarily.
There's no requirement that they be published.
It's not a requirement. It's on.
I don't think it's on. There we go.
Okay, so I don't think it's a publication or a requirement that they're published in the paper or in the minutes, but regardless of whether they're published or not, we still have that record of all of those on hand anyway by virtue of just completing the payroll and logging those things. So to submit a notice that says these are on file for viewing, I think that kind of goes without saying, because the county clerk has that anyway. And rule number, or A of this rule, says that these records will be kept on the county clerk's office anyway. So I think by virtue, we already have them, so I don't know as though we need to do anything more than if someone wants them, like any other public record, they could request that.
Okay, you have a formal resolution that you could read to us?
I can read it in its entirety, if you'd like me to.
Yes.
Okay, so it'd be a resolution amending the Rule 17 of the Rules of the Board, whereas the proposed amendments align with the county clerk's vision and efforts to streamline inter-office processes and functions within the office of the county clerk, and whereas the proposed amendments to Rule 17 regarding payments to the county board supervisors for per diems and mileage have been made by the county clerk's office to create efficiencies and expedite the administrative and payroll processes for the reimbursement of said payments. And now therefore be it resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that Rule 17 will be amended by repealing the following crossed-out words and adopting the following underlined words. And that is all the changes that I just outlined. If you'd like me to read continue
No,
reading
that's
that, I
fine.
can, but.
What was that, Mr. Seat?
No, that's fine. Move that
Okay.
this resolution be forwarded to the county board for approval.
Okay, that's already happened. So
Yeah.
are there any other comments
didn't
on
hear
this?
that.
Supervisor Cosgrove?
I just, operational question. What's the delivery process for this to the county board?
Once approved, I would send an email to all the county board members to say, here's the new mileage and per diem form. Please use effective, whatever date, and then it'd be sent as an electronic document at which you could save it and, copy over it every month or print a new one, however you want to do it. So it'll be delivered electronically.
Okay, Supervisor Severson?
Currently, we have a supervisor that doesn't use electronic devices.
So
How
that's,
can we accommodate people who don't do that?
they can print the form out in its entirety and fill it out by hand and turn that in. What I'm trying to get away from is having a stack of half sheets of paper and having all the per diems for every supervisor on one piece of paper that's submitted to me by the stated deadline of the last day of the month. So this way, there's no wrangling of people trying to divvy out half sheets of paper like I did when I got here earlier before the meeting.
And then if supervisors don't fill one out, then they don't get a per diem. Right?
That's what the rule already says, correct? It's the supervisor's responsibility to submit all requests for their per diems and mileage.
But they do have till the end of the year to clean up their delinquent submissions.
And
That's
that
correct.
being said, they could do that, but the expectation that I'm trying to create is that this is the deadline for this, because delaying this stuff and pushing this out farther just makes, things messier to clean up for payroll and everything else. So that is true, but this is in an effort, again, to really rein things in and make the process much more well-known than what it is now.
Well, we're not rescinding the element of the previous rule, which allowed supervisors to submit delinquents up to December 31st. Is that correct?
That's not part of this rule change. It can
Okay,
be,
fine.
but
Mr. Chairman, I apologize to Mr. Cosgrove. I didn't know that he'd already made the motion.
That's okay. Okay, so if one question I have is, if a supervisor does not have a printer, would they be able to get a printed copy in the clerk's or
course.
administrator office?
of
Okay.
course, yes.
Okay, great. So I think that would help for a few people. I'm assuming that several supervisors might not be used to using Excel. So I can see some people filling out the paper version.
Which is why I tried, when I created the electronic version, keeping in mind that there are some that will fill this out by hand. I can imagine that as a supervisor, it would be much easier to have a list of all your meetings in one spot instead of having, a bunch of little pieces of paper floating around. I would think that would be a more efficient way to do this, but.
Okay, and was there anyone else who wanted to speak? Yeah, Ms. Scott, go ahead.
I think that Excel's too challenging.
Could you speak into the microphone, because we have quite a few people online.
If they found Excel. Finding. Oh, no, Jay, it's not working.
You could come by me.
If the,
Mine works.
there we go. If they were finding that Excel was too challenging, we can just make it an Adobe web form perhaps So it'd be simpler to use.
Great. Sounds like MIS will help with the process if anyone has trouble. And then Mr. Langer? Okay, great. Well, if we don't have any further discussion on this, I think we should go ahead and take a vote then. All those in favor of amending this rule and sending it forward to the county board, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. So thank you, Clerk Kalish. And then that takes us to agenda item number 6, bids for online ordinances and resolutions. And I do have a summary sheet. I didn't have time to send that out that Clerk Kalish sent me yesterday afternoon, but I can certainly get that to committee members. Clerk Kalish, I don't know if
I
Well,
can
maybe-
go over it.
Okay, great.
It's a summary of a few different things that are not exactly duplicated, but you'll see. So you'll recall, I think back at the May meeting, I think it was my first rules meeting, coming back. You all thought it would be a great idea for me to look at ways to digitize documents because everything currently lives on paper in 11 by 17 binders. That being said, there are some things that are electronic, but for the most part, they're not. The item that was brought up was ordinances and the need for those ordinances to be digitized, electronic, searchable in a user-friendly format that we can effectively use as a, governing body. So with that task in mind, I did reach out to a couple different vendors to see what services they had. I believe when that conversation first took place, we kind of went back and forth with using the word bid or not. I do not believe we weren't ready to seek bids at that, formal bids at that point or anything like that. But what I was charged to do was a fact-finding mission to see what services and types of things are available to complete the task at hand. So, let's see, you guys have, if you look at the Excel document, it lists the 3 vendors that I spoke with: Municode, General Code, and then Gordon Flesh. So, I will give you a brief summary of kind of what these conversations led into. So, as of right now, when we took the field trip to the vault, you did see all the books and all those things in there. So the main task at hand is to digitize that stuff, doing exactly what I just said we needed to do. These 3 individuals can do that. Particular to a code of ordinance, there's this thing called codification. And so what codification does is it takes all of your ordinances, it reviews them all, and then it does a full legal review on those ordinances, compares them to state statute, really does a thorough look at how the ordinances stack up legally to state statute. And then at the end of this project, we'll provide you with an actual code of ordinances. At this point, if you want to call a bunch of ordinances stuffed in a proceedings book a code of ordinances, then so be it. But in terms of an actual code of ordinance that is organized, we don't have that right now. We just have a list of ordinances that have been passed since 1851. I think that was the first meeting, May of 1851. So what Muni Code and General Code do is they would take all of our ordinances, do a codification, so a full legal review. We would be involved with this. Our attorney would be involved in this. This isn't something we just ship off and they provide us with a completed project. We have say in this. This is a 12 to 18 month process that it would take to do this. So it's quite lengthy, but nonetheless, Muni Code and General Code do that. They would take our ordinances, do the legal review, put them in a searchable, electronic format for us to effectively use as a governing body. So that's what those 2 companies do. It happened to be Gordon Flesh came into the picture only because they were in there talking to me about toner for a printer. And when Rob walked in, he said, "Wow, Derek, you have a lot of paper in here." And I said, "Yeah, you have no clue." So he just proceeded to tell me that they could essentially do kind of the same thing Muni Code and General Code did. But then as we've exchanged a few conversations, he said, "Derek, we don't do the codification." So this is where this gets a little messy then. The Muni Code and the General Code, those estimates that you see on the top are for a full codification of our ordinances and only the ordinances, because that was kind of the first thing I think, Carrie, you mentioned too, that we wanted to look at were the ordinances, because that's our form of government, right? That's how we govern the county. So those companies look at that. Gordon Flesh does not do the codification. However, they can do a ton of scanning. So I don't know if you'll recall, but in our tour, there's the County Board Book of Proceedings, which there's 26 of those books or 25 books from book 1 through book 26. In those volumes of books, there's every set of board minutes, every resolution, and every ordinance passed by the county board since May of 1851. So although Gordon Flesh can't do the codification, Gordon and Flesh can digitize and scan all that stuff to get it, into a digital format, which doesn't exist right now. Some of it does, but not all of those minutes. So when I kind of went through this, there was kind of a path then. So I came to a crossing point. How do you guys want me to proceed? We can proceed with the codification route, which just looks at the ordinances and cleans those up. And that, that's what general code and muni code can do. If you choose not to do that, you could go into the digitization part, which is getting all of these documents from the beginning of time into an electronic searchable format. There is no codification, meaning there's no legal review there. There's none of that. It's literally just digitizing stuff. So there's pros and cons to both of these. I think it's worth our effort to go with one of the providers, either muni code or general code, to start with our ordinances, get the ordinances up to date, get those legally reviewed, and have an actual official code of ordinances for the county to use. And then we can maybe tackle the resolutions and the minutes at a later time. As a part of this whole scheme to get rid of some of this paper, the idea is that we would get some of these documents in an electronic digitized format. So if we're going to do some of them, you may as well do them all. So that's kind of where this project is right now.
So I did send out, while he was discussing, giving a summary of this, I sent out the summary sheet that he sent me, and at the bottom of that summary sheet, there's a link to Sauk County's website, and it's called the Code of Ordinances. So I'm assuming that codification means they have 40 chapters in their Code of Ordinances. I'm assuming that codification means, say, taking our loose dog ordinance and figuring out a chapter that would go into. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it puts it into that numerical numbering system, which again, we have control over. We can work that, but the companies that do this is what they do for municipalities and counties. So, this is done by a staff of legal attorneys too as well. And so we do have input. It's, again, I just want to tell you, it's not like we give them our books and then we get a finished project later. We're involved in every step of this 12 to 18-month process.
And then I thought I saw somewhere in the muni code proposal, or one of the two proposals, that there was an option to upload resolutions. Is that correct?
Yeah, there is. So,
okay.
Right. So Clint, can you go back up for just a second? Sorry. So without going too much into the weeds with these, let's just start at the top. So I want to note these are estimated costs. So in order to arrive at this cost, MuniCode, for example, had already had some of our information. MuniCode has actually done this for the city of Richland Center. Unfortunately, the city did not adopt that code of ordinances that was created. It sat on the shelf after it was created. So MuniCode has some knowledge of Richland County and the community. So their base price is $16,750. So like I said, what the bulk of that cost is likely in the codification, because those services cost money. It's legal services that cost money. So for that base price, that's kind of the core price for this project. That would be split between the two budget years. And then if you go underneath there, there's the two annual costs. There's the self-publishing cost, which allows us to upload documents manually into the system. If you don't want to go with that cost, then it's about $36 for one sheet of paper. There's a cost to upload every document should you not, take that self-publishing component yourself. There's also a $295, it's like a hosting fee, maintenance fee for the website. So if you look at 22 to 20, the estimate cost there then for 2022 to the budget would be that $10,870, which would be half of the COD costs, and then the rest of those. And I just to give you an idea of how much it would look like for the next 5 years, that's what it breaks down to. So, and the projected time for MuniCode is what it says 10 to 12 months, but I think it's probably like 10 to 18 months. I want to remind you, this has never been done at the county before, so we're starting from scratch, which is why this is going to take a long time and require a significant amount of cash investment and investment from my office, because we will be the conduit for all of this stuff. So there's that's cost too. General code, if you scroll down, these guys essentially do the same thing. Again, I did provide you with a website for each of these. Sean, I think Sauk County was MuniCode, I believe that was Okay, right.
Vernon's got maybe code.
Yeah, a lot of these townships do. And when I sat at the Wisconsin County Clerks Association conference, several of them have gone through this process with Municode and still use Municode. Some of them have pulled away because they've gotten to the point where they can kind of do it themselves and manage it themselves, and that's okay too. Municode also, I don't want to go into too much detail about this because it's kind of a finance related thing, but Municode also has some other options for us to grow in terms of like website development and other things like that. And I know this is not about the website, but I do know they have lots of other services that may be, come in handy for us later, which I think are actually really cool. I've talked to this company a few different times when I was at the city, and I see that Jason Glassburner's on. So Jason, when I take a breath here, if you want to say anything, feel free. You're familiar with Municode too. So Municode has lots of options. General Code does almost the same thing. You'll see the cost difference isn't terrible between the two. So again, I was trying to give you providers that are apples on apples to compare them to. So you can see the costs aren't much difference there. The only thing with General Code is they don't have a self-publishing thing. So once they complete the Code of Ordinance, which I believe they stopped their estimate at 21-17, we would have to pay for continual uploads, which is where you see that $36 per one side of paper. I did reach out to the rep to say what would be an average cost for us, and she thought me putting 2,500 in there as a placeholder was maybe a little more than we needed, but certainly within the ballpark of an expectation of reality there. And then there's an ongoing maintenance cost too. So those are the two codification providers. When you go down to Gordon Flesh, and I didn't realize they didn't do that until we got there, but went ahead talking to them, just because if you choose not to codify, and if the importance is not in getting a codified code of ordinance and you want just to get stuff digitally and electronically, which I know has been talked about as well, this is another possibility. This is expensive. If you look at this, it's a 5-year contract for 5-year contract at roughly that much a month, and that's just scanning stuff. So I really don't think this is the right way to go. But because I wanted to give you a couple different things to look at, this is kind of what I found out. Also, I need to mention, because I have MIS right behind me, we will need to loop MIS into this as well. I didn't loop them in at this point because the task was just to find people that can do this and tell you, here's what this project would look like. These are all estimates, and then we would need to make sure that the software and how this actually works for us jives with our MIS folks too. So
Okay.
I will include you guys as well, but here's what I have for a summary.
Okay, great. Let's hear from committee members. So Mr. Seat, go ahead.
Ordinances have been reviewed for years by Corporation Council before they were ratified by the review.
Okay, so Mr. Seat, for those online, he was just asking, since Corporation Council has reviewed all ordinances in the past, should we be asking them to review these again during the codification process? Did I get that question right? It is on now. Yep.
It seems to me, Mr. Chair, that perhaps the legal service for review would be a significant or somewhat of a portion of the expense here that may not be necessary.
It is a portion of the expense, but I also believe it's not one of those things you can tease out. So as a part of getting this code of ordinance, together and updated and in an effective, efficient format, it's just kind of one of the things they do is a piece of that puzzle. It's not the entire thing, but it is a piece of what they do. And so although they have been reviewed, they're also going to compare them against current state statutes. They're going to compare statutes or the ordinances that we have to one another to make sure there's not a duplication. So again, because this has never been done, I know Corp Council has been involved, but this is a broad comparison of everything, of all the ordinances we have.
I appreciate your comment. And secondly, in terms of cost benefit analysis, will this benefit the county? Is it to the extent that it's well worth the investment?
I believe so. There's lots of times that people ask for ordinances, and it's, for one, takes forever and a day to find one because I have to dig through volumes of books. Second of all, this can be integrated into the website. So instead of me fielding a call for an ordinance, I understand that not everyone is online now, but at some point, most of the population will be online. So, it does increase that accountability, transparency, and all those things that we're trying to put out there to people too. So,
So
there's
how will that
component to it.
relate to fee for public record request?
Well, okay, so a couple different ways. If someone wants to find it online, I can't charge them for it. But at this point, as I said in my finance and personnel presentation of my budget just a few days ago, the revenue I get from public, from, documents and everything is pretty much non-existent because most stuff is electronic now. So there's an impact to, I suppose, a budget, but I didn't even calculate those revenues in because
That's fine.
they don't exist, really.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sure thing. Mr. Severson's nodding his head. I know this was a big interest to you, so just curious to know what you think.
It was an interest to me. At first I was just thinking of what Gordon Flesh would be able to provide, but now seeing the contract from Muni or what their proposal is and from General Code, I actually like the thought that their attorneys will compare our ordinances to state statute, because we may be operating on a ordinance from 1980, which may have been changed in that time. State statute may have contradict now our ordinance, and I think it's good to go through there. And secondly, I think it's good to have our corporation counsel also work with these attorneys. Not only did we have a former corporation counsel that did approve it, but will our current attorney stand behind a lot of these that our former attorney said that he would? And so I would like him to be involved because he's actually there for legal advice for us. So.
So it sounds like that will be part of the process. So, yep, go ahead.
My
Yep.
second thing would be for you three that are on, or four that are on finance and personnel here, is do we have money to start this?
Yeah, I would say that I don't think this committee can make any funding decision. Finance and personnel could make a recommendation to the county board as part of the budget. So I think it would be appropriate to refer this to finance and personnel as part of that process. And I see Mr. Langrick might want to chime in on that.
I guess the context of the conversation is which direction did you want to go so that Clerk Kalish knows how to approach finance and personnel with a recommendation to budget for option A or budget for option B. Is that correct? Clerk
Yeah,
Kalish?
right. Which route do you want me to take? Or do you want codification or do you just want digitization? Which are that's what we need to decide today or going forward.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. And then we got someone from MIS that wants to speak. Yep.
So then my next question would be to the county clerk and MIS, is that if the county board did go through and choose one of these three to do this, or even the two that offer codification, would you have time in your office to do this, or would we be putting more of a burden on your office and your staff to do this?
For my office, the bulk of we're paying for a service. They are a service provider, so they will be doing this. They will provide us stuff to review and approve because collectively as a body, it is our code of ordinance. But the heavy lifting will be, it's part of the service fee. So they will request documents from me. I believe I will have to provide them with the 3 ordinance books that I have. They'll take them, they'll do whatever their magic is, and then provide us, they will provide us with a version. We will keep editing as we see fit. And again, that involves everyone, it involves several key players in the county, including MIS as well, to make sure that what they're doing will work with what we have. So it will be a little bit of work. I'm not saying it won't, but the bulk of we're paying for a service, so they will do most of the work.
And your office is okay with working with them? Like, we're not going to be taking away your work for doing other stuff in the county and making more of a burden on you.
You won't. This is something that has to be done, so we will make it work. I won't talk about my budget because that's a different conversation, but yes, it's fine. We can do this. We have to do this. We have to do this as a county. This has to be done. These documents have to be digitized. We have to get away from, you saw the vault, right? We have to get away from that, so we'll make it work.
Okay, Mr. Marshall.
So one of the things I just wanted to point out is if with Gordon Flush, that didn't really have an option to host that online. So that amount of space, we would have to change and probably pay for hosting of our website that we do not pay for now. So that would be an additional cost to consider when comparing them. It wouldn't be a true direct comparison to the municipal one.
Mr. Chairman?
Okay, so if I'm here, I just want to summarize before. So Municode hosts a website, but Gordon Flesh, did I get that right? Or General Code?
Gordon Flesh does not, so.
Gordon Flesh does not. So there would be an additional cost that isn't included in this estimate. And actually, I did talk to Clerk Kalish earlier today. I asked him the question, which would you recommend? Which service? And you said Municode. So I think the whole committee should know that.
Yes.
The clerk, and sounds like MIS is, they can see the advantage of going with that one as well. So I think we should all be clear about which is the preferred vendor at this point of view, or at this point in the process. I just want to check and see if Supervisor Luck or Cosgrove wanted to say anything.
Mr. Chair, my only comment was what you brought up is that, you know, this really is going to come down to our budget process. So I guess I think we should codify our ordinances because, I mean, there are ordinances that were written in the 1800s that I'm not sure if they've ever been reviewed by a modern day attorney. And so it really does make sense that we would get them in a format that we can actually know what our ordinances are, because at this point, I'm not sure anybody even knows what all the ordinances are that are on the books. So it does seem like that should be the first step. And I feel like we can digitally scan the rest of our documents at a future date, either through a company or by other means of hiring or whatever. We could hire an LTE or something. But anyway, I think that the codification is important.
Okay. Mr. C?
Has everyone else had an opportunity? I
Yes,
don't want to jump the line again.
you have not jumped the line. You're back in it.
All right. I had two questions. One is, I presume you need to do further research to nail down proposed cost, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I can ask them how much more information they need. They've already collected some information to arrive at this cost because I needed to have an idea of what it would be. I would likely, so after you tell me which path I'm going on today, my plan was then to reach out to those two providers, or if you're okay with just going with Municode, if in September, if you guys wanted to have me get them on a call and, you know, show you a little bit about what they're doing. I did provide the link to the website so you can kind of look at that, which isn't really any different than what they're going to show you. You don't need to see how it's going to operationally work. That would be myself and my deputy and MIS to worry about that. But I can, you know, ask again and see if there's, you know, anything else that's there. But that's the important piece, is these are estimates, right? So this project could be a little more, could be a little less. This is based on what they know we have for books. And again, no one's done this before, so I don't know if we'll come into something crazy. It's just books, but just to put that out there, that these are the best guess estimates too. So.
And secondly, you stated that this has to be done. Did you mean that in terms of legally it has to be done, or
No.
by statute, or you just feel it's a necessity?
It does not. I feel if we're on this train for progress, and we're really trying to get rid of all the paper and to put this into an accountable format, then I think this is the way to go. I mean, this, aside from creating efficiencies, does create accountability for us as a government, and also transparency for the people. And for someone that wants an ordinance, then I'm not searching through books. So, and the fact that it's never been done since 1851, I believe, is
Good.
amazing.
And Derek, the third thing is, you've got a lot of work on your plate here coming into this job, and you're finding a lot of things that you feel has to be done. Do you think in the first year of your tenure that you may be overloading yourself?
No, I'm okay. I'm okay. It's fine. It has to be done. And so this is in my budget presentation also too. One of the goals for the office is to do this, whether it's codification or digitization. So no, it's okay.
Well, I appreciate all of your work on this, and I think it's an intelligent proposal. I do agree with Supervisor Luck that there are budgetary concerns. And I know that Administrator Leinbrecht is very concerned about holding the line on our budget.
Okay, Supervisor Cosgrove.
If appropriate, I would say I would make a motion to go with Muni Code, but that Clerk Kalish clarify and verify that this is their best estimate forward, and then move it to Finance and Personnel.
Okay, so we've got a motion to explore Muni Code further and refer the matter to Finance and Personnel. And by explore, I think we mean the clerk would explore Muni Code further. To continue to nail down those costs.
Carrie Severson will second.
Okay, so motion by Cosgrove, as a second by Severson. I think we've talked about this a fair amount, so let's go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. So thank you very much, Clerk Kalish. You had two very important big items on our agenda today, and those have both moved forward. So that will take us to agenda item number 7, amended redistricting timeline and creation of redistricting committee. So I'm just going to take just a minute to pull up the documents and refresh my memory on how I laid this out for you, for the committee to consider today. So I think it was about a couple weeks ago, several of us here at the county, myself, and then on a separate call, I believe Mr. Langreich, Clerk Kalish, and Ms. Newkirk from the zoning office attended a webinar that the Wisconsin Counties Association gave on what's transpired with redistricting since we last talked about this item several months back in the spring. And what I've got before the committee today is a two-part motion. The first part of the motion would be to present a resolution to the county board to amend Resolution 21-17, which was the redistricting timetable that we adopted back in January. And then the second part of the motion would be to present a resolution to the county board to create a redistricting committee with direction to retain the county board's current size of 21 supervisory districts. So the background on this is that very soon after we adopted that resolution in January, the news came out that the Census Bureau was delaying the release of their population data. So the Counties Association had this series of meetings, and they proposed a state law change because the state law says that, I believe there's a deadline by July 1st that counties have to initially publish their plan for redistricting, but that's not possible. The population data is supposed to be released sometime this month, so we could have never done that. So the legislature passed a bill, but that was vetoed by the governor on July 9th. So that led us back to this webinar. Not sure if my microphone.
It's really loud.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I'm speaking. I'm too close. So the Counties Association at that webinar proposed an updated redistricting timeline based on all this new information and the developments with the legislature and the governor. So their current suggested timeline is that by August 23rd, counties begin drafting a tentative plan and publish a notice of hearing. By September 15th, counties hold that public hearing, adopt a tentative redistricting plan, and transmit that plan to municipalities, which would be the city, the villages, and the townships in the county. And then a month later, municipalities transmit their ward plans back to counties, and that would only apply if we were proposing to split one of their municipalities up. So say we were splitting up a township, we would be drawing different wards, and those municipalities would get to say whether they like how we split their municipality up or not. So they would transmit that ward plan back to the counties. We would then publish a notice of a second hearing, and then November 3rd to the 10th, we would hold that public hearing and adopt a final plan. And by November 23rd, that's when county and municipal clerks would have to publish a notice, and it's a type A notice. I don't even know what that means. I'm sure people in the room like Clerk Kalish do. So the timetable that we had adopted was starting in February and ending in September. So now we have this compressed timeline. And so what I did is I just drafted a new resolution that would change those old dates and substitute in the new dates, although not very specific. It would just be by the month. The dates that the counties association put out there were just recommendations or suggestions. They weren't trying to prescribe it. They were just trying to guide us through the process. So that's the calendar part. Then the size of our county board part. So at our February meeting, we reviewed a report on county board size that I brought to the committee and the effect of reducing the size of the county board on different things like how many people would we each represent, how many committees, boards, or commissions would we have to serve on. And we made a motion to develop a survey on this, but then in March, we postponed it because of this potential 2-year delay in redistricting. So I was kind of hearing from the committee at that time that a reduction in the size of the county board doesn't have significant advantages, and that given this compressed time frame and that sense I was getting from the committee, it might be best just to be pretty direct in saying that we want to keep the size of the board at 21 for the purposes of redistricting, so that we don't get into this mess of trying to figure out, well, what would the map look like if we had 21? What would the map look like if we had 17 or 13? That would be a pretty big burden on staff to try to work through that at the same time we're trying to get notices out. So that's why that's out there. And then the redistricting parts, the redistricting committee, I'm not sure where I wrote about, I'm not seeing my summary on this, but the counties association, they published this guide for how to do redistricting. And in that they suggest the appointment of a redistricting committee, and they suggest appointing municipal clerks to that redistricting committee, especially. And they say you can also include citizens. So what I did, and I don't know that this is the right way to do it, I'm just pitching it to the committee so you have something to react to, and we can figure out what we want to forward to the county board. So there's a draft resolution on creating a redistricting committee. I listed it as having 1 citizen of the county, 3 county board supervisors, 1 of whom shall serve as chair, and 3 municipal clerks, 1 each from a city, so that'd be Richland Center, of course, and a village and a township. And that the county board appoint the citizen and the supervisors, and that the county clerk, I was assuming because the county clerk would know the clerks better than maybe the county board would appoint those 3 municipal clerks. And then that committee would actually do most of the work and then forward their recommendations on to the county board. So that's everything I've got. Reactions and thought. I asked Mr. Langrek if he wanted to do this, and he was happy to. I think that's why he's giving me a little bit of applause. Thankful you didn't have to do it, right?
Mr. Chairman, you're for a motion to forward these recommendations to the county board, or what are you asking for?
Yeah, so I'm recommending a 2-part motion. 1 to amend the redistricting timetable, and 2 to create a redistricting committee and keep the county board at 21 members. Supervisor Severson.
I think in our rule of the board, somewhere in our rules of the board, that the majority, if there's a majority of county board supervisors, then this county supervisor should be chairperson. I think right now we don't have a majority of county board supervisors, and you're wanting to make the county board supervisor chair. However, I think that's in conflict with our rules of the board.
I didn't quite follow your syllogism.
So somewhere in our rules of the board, it allows for the majority of supervisors, 1 shall be chairperson of a committee. And right now, as this is going out, we have 3 county board supervisors, 3 municipal clerks, and 1 citizen member, which the county board does not have a majority of supervisors to be a chair. So I think his recommendation would be in conflict of our rules of the board.
You're correct. I believe.
Yeah, that would
And I'm
be,
fine with that, being that way. I don't know what we need to do.
The rule states that wherever a committee consists of county board supervisors and they are a majority of the board, that then one of those board members shall serve as chair. That's correct.
Right now, according to this, we don't have the majority. County board does not have the majority.
and it'd be
It
rule.
does not exclude a county board supervisor from being the chair, but that's
Correct.
required.
Yeah, and just so we're all on the same page, it's Rule 18, and the sentence is, the chair of boards, commissions, or committees shall be a supervisor when a majority of the members of the board, commission, or committee is made up of supervisors. Do you, let's get you on the mic, just so.
Thank you. I don't necessarily think that's in conflict. I think that's kind of an inclusive statement that says if that's the composition, it must be this way. I don't think it has to be contradiction to that if it went the other way. So I don't see where that would be a conflict.
It might be a conflict if Rule 18 said a county board supervisor may not serve as the chair when a minority of the committee is made up of county board supervisors. That would definitely be in conflict.
We could have, Mr. Chairman,
Yep, go ahead.
in this case, in this particular case, we could have an amendment for this particular committee to stipulate that the chair of the committee shall be a county board supervisor. There's no reason that we can't do that for this one particular case. You can always make an exception to the rule by majority vote.
And I should say too, just to be totally transparent, last time around, the redistricting committee was made up of all county board members. I looked that up. It's all online from 2011, the last time we did redistricting. The reason I recommended it this way is because the counties association recommends including clerks and says that citizens may be included. And I do think that it's probably a good practice when we're redrawing our own lines. We may have a vested interest in where those lines go, that to get some outside people on that committee so it doesn't look like we're not willing to listen to outside opinions. Some counties, I don't know how many of them, and they're probably mostly the bigger counties, actually have a totally independent committee that makes a recommendation to the county board. We don't have a lot of time. I don't know that that's totally necessary in Richland County, but I thought if we had a composition that was just slightly tilted away from the county board, that might be a good thing, but I want to hear a reaction. So yeah, Supervisor Severson.
You're not interested in gerrymandering, huh?
Exactly. I don't think that's such a big issue at the county board level, but I do think we should probably follow our own. We did put that on the ballot, the whole gerrymandering issue. So I think, we should be practicing what we preach, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Mr. Seep wants to speak, but anyone else want to go first? Okay, Mr. Seep.
Yeah, I don't want to learn it, Mike.
Nope.
One could, if there are concerns, one could also stipulate in an amendment that the members who are clerks or other citizen members may be advisory to the committee, or that their vote may be non-binding, or that they don't have a vote. There are several ways to do this. I think that this is a county government issue, and I do think that the county boards committee should have a significant amount of authority. In the final analysis, I believe that the whole proposal is subject to approval by the total county board. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, there are enough safeguards.
Okay, so I guess I'm looking for a motion to do both of these things, the two-part motion, unless the committee wants to split those up.
I would make that motion.
Okay, motion by Luck,
I'm always happy to second this.
second by Seep. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Let's see, should we do a roll? I think I want to do a roll call. I'm not hearing some people vote. So I think we need to get on the record about this. And
Aye. Aye.
I can't hear Derek.
Luck?
Aye.
Murphy Lopez?
aye.
You have 5 ayes.
Okay, so the motion carries. All right, thanks for sharing your opinions on that one, and we'll forward that on to the county board that will be going there at this month's meeting. Agenda item number 8, video recording of meetings and availability of meeting materials. So at the last Rules and Resolutions Committee meeting, Supervisors Cosgrove and Luck were not here, but myself, Supervisor Severson, and Seep were here, and we did discuss this item. And what the committee decided at that meeting was that we should have some sort of language drafted for the committee to consider around video recording and availability of meeting materials. It may have been I think the discussion was a little bit more focused on the video recording issue, but I went ahead and threw both of them in here. So just want to be totally transparent there as well. So just getting my document open here. Just run through a few things. This may be a reminder for those of us who were here, but for the committee members who were not here. So we already have video recordings being made and posted to the county website for 6 committees. So it's the Administrator Transition Committee, Finance and Personnel, Health and Human Services, LEJC, Rules and Resolutions, and the Veteran Service Commission. I've listed out some advantages here of recording meetings, including transparency for the public, a reference point for us to go back and watch discussions and decisions, more accountability for us as board members and for staff of the county board, and then better consistency between different committees, commissions, and boards. So I did discuss this a bit with Ms. Scott earlier this week. She told me that in most cases, MIS staff is doing the recording, but in some cases, like over in Health and Human Services, departmental staff are able to do this video recording. And because of the difference in how we oftentimes conduct meetings with remote options available, that technological advance has made it such that, and I know she'll correct me if I've got this wrong, but she's estimating that staffing will not need to increase to accommodate video recording. So what I did is I was trying to think through, we have all these committees. There's somewhere between 20 and 35 committees, commissions, or boards of our county board. And what I did is I put all of those different bodies into a spreadsheet. And if you look at 8A, video recording, in our meeting materials, I created all these different columns. In green are the committees or commissions or boards that already do the video recording. Then the third column shows whether or not this particular body is county led, because, for example, Hidden Valleys is listed as one of our boards, I believe, but of course, we don't lead that board. It's another body, and we just send a member there. So I tried to distinguish between, do we lead it, does someone else lead it, or do we partially lead it? And those examples are with the city. So the City County Ad Hoc Committee Economic Development, and Simons. And then the fourth column is, do we have a majority of county board members on this particular body? So I highlighted the instances where we make up anywhere over half of those members. Some of them I didn't know, and if you see mistakes in here, of course, correct those. I was just kind of doing this based on what I could find online and what I knew personally. And we have 22 different bodies, I believe, that are a majority county board members, and 6 out of those 22 are already video recording. So if that was the criteria we used, and I'm not sure that this is the right one, I'm just kind of throwing out different ideas, we would have 16 additional bodies that would be doing video recording. And then another way to look at this is, what about just recording bodies that meet more than 6 or more times in a year? So this was from 2020, the approximate number of meetings that each body had. And those are highlighted in yellow if there's 6 or more. And then a final way of looking at this is, what about bodies that control a pretty large budget? So the cutoff I used was $1 million or more expenses in this current calendar year. So we'd have 2 additional bodies that would fit into that criteria, and that would be Highway and Pine Valley. But then if you wanted to move the breaking point lower from 1 million to $500,000, I included a couple other budgets that are fairly large. So Joint Ambulance has a $0.9 million expense budget, and Simons has a $500,000 budget. And of course, this isn't just money that comes from the county levy. This is all expenses. So, obviously a lot of the revenue from both ambulance and Simons comes from sources outside. I was just trying to come up with some way that I could easily grab different dollar amounts without having to do an analysis that I am not qualified to do. So what I did then, let's see, didn't draft a resolution. How did I do this? I'm trying to remember. So what I did is I drafted a potential change to rule number 3, which this discusses. Rule number 3 is about attendance and whether or not we have to be in person or we can attend remotely. And so mostly what I did is just added a sentence at the end that would say, county-led committees, commissions, and boards whose members are composed of a majority of county board supervisors shall be video recorded and posted on the county website. And again, I don't know if this is the right solution. I think we all need to weigh in on this and think through what the implications would be. So I'm curious to hear what committee members think.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep, go ahead.
you mentioned a number of criteria, the size of the budget and so forth. I think another criterion to consider would be the number of constituents that a department specifically serves. For example, we know that, this is just an example, that in Richland County, the Veteran Service Office has potentially 1,300 constituents. There are 1,300 veterans in the county who are eligible for services from that office. You may have another office, perhaps it's Register of Deeds or another, that doesn't have that kind of potential traffic. So I just believe that the Human Services Agency has a large number of constituents. The Highway Department has, and I guess you'd analyze that somewhat differently, but various departments have various constituencies, and they vary in size, as well as the question of analyzing them from this vantage point of budget. So the degree of importance of that committee's or that department's accountability to the community relates also to the number of constituents it serves, I would think. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you for the comment.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I definitely agree that we should have more of our meetings online available for people, citizens, and like you said, staff members to be able to watch so that they can understand what's going on, how we're making decisions. And I mean, yeah, you've given us a number of options, and I think the way that you've written it is probably a good place to start. And I think as we get used to doing this, it probably will be a lot easier to incorporate even more than what you've stated, which I believe you in the resolution you recommended just any committee, board, or commission where a majority of the members are board supervisors. So, I mean, I would be in agreement with how you've written it and would, after other people talk, I would definitely make a motion to accept what you've already written, but I won't do it yet until I hear from other people.
Okay, sounds good. Supervisor Severson?
I think we should hold off for a little bit and study this a little bit more on the financial impact this may make on our staff that we would need to have. I'm for open meeting and for being video recorded. I just that this is something new for us and I don't think we should jump in. So I just did a rough number guess, and with including the ambulance, including highway, including Simons, and the number of times that they meet, I've got 113 days. So that would be 113 times right now with just that days that we would have to have staff here to be able to hold a 4-hour meeting at most. So, and then highway meets out there, like, and there's a lot of times that we leave there and we go on a field trip out to the shop to go look at a piece of equipment. And like, do we have the infrastructure out at highway to have video recording out there?
Maybe Ms. Scott this might be a good segue for her to weigh in on this financial impacts question.
And that's actually one of the things that I did reply to your email this morning. I was out yesterday. Well, yeah, I did say we could handle it after I thought about it. Supervisor Stevenson's exactly right. When I started looking at all of the 35 boards, there is no way that my staff could possibly do that. There will be some weight lifted next year. We are anticipating making this room more available so that MIS staff won't have to be here. The department head in charge of that meeting will be able to record and take care of that. But there is still other work that's done besides just the recording and being present at the meeting. The videos have to be finished, uploaded to the YouTube channel that Richland County has, linked to the web. The materials have to be packaged together and put out. So there is a lot more than just being present at the meeting. There's more things we have to do. I'm not opposed to doing this. I think it's a wonderful idea. I thoroughly support it. I just feel like at this point I have to also say I can't say it won't take more staff. I don't want that. Initially I said, yeah, not a problem. The more I thought about it, the more I'm wrong when I say that. We will.
Mr. Chair, I have another question.
Yep, go ahead.
It's actually for Ms. Scott. So you're uploading all of our videos to YouTube so that it's not being stored on our servers. Is that correct?
That's exactly why we're doing it. So it's
Okay.
not stored on our servers.
But that also, it does meet, as far as we know, meet with all the open meeting laws as far as not having to keep these on. I'm assuming YouTube is going to be around forever and they'll always be available there. And we don't have to have a physical copy saved somewhere.
There isn't any rule that says you have to be on 120 days. That's what the state statute is. So after 3 months, we wouldn't be required to keep them. Now, our intent, of course, is to, but we wouldn't be required to be on 120 days.
So, when she's through, I have a question.
I think she's through. Go ahead.
So it's on YouTube for 120 days. So it's not archived for future access by anyone after 120 days. Is that correct?
No, they're out there for several years. If you were to go out and look now, it's just that the state doesn't mandate that we keep them beyond 120 days. We do much longer, but we're not mandated to.
Well, who archives them?
We have kept them up on YouTube, MIS staff.
They're on the county archives.
Negative. They're stored on YouTube servers to save data space on
okay.
the county's
All right, so
servers.
that's all. My only question is, can we access these 5 years from now, 7 years from now?
At this point, the answer to that is yes.
So
YouTube could change their rules. I don't control those rules, but at this point, the answer is yes.
okay, well, that's a concern.
One other piece of information I want to share with folks is that I did notice that Sauk County, I went to their website and they record almost all of their bodies meetings. And I did reach out to their MIS staff to ask if I was first looking to see if they had a policy adopted, because it wasn't in their county board rules. And they got back to me and the staff member from MIS and said that they have no policy. It just sort of has organically happened. I know that because we don't have a policy, I've heard from Ms. Scott before that it makes it kind of challenging to know, what does the county board want? What's our vision for video recording and then of course meeting materials. Right now it's happening in a way that who's making the decision about whether a meeting gets video recorded and meeting materials are available, it's kind of unclear. Is it a department head making that decision? Is it the committee chair making the decision? And then what are the rules for getting that information out there? I think right now we're just in this area where things have been growing organically in the past year or two around that. And I can see some advantage in getting the county board's intent down, but at the same time, I really understand this issue of finances. How would this affect our staff and what they're able to accomplish? I guess my concern is right now we have 6 meetings being video recorded on top of county board meetings. And what if 5 more committees add? And where is MIS's breaking point? Do we need some sort of an idea of what's their limit and what would be the financial impact if we want to do what Sauk County has done? What would the costs be, so that we clearly know as a county board, do we think it's worth it or not to do this? So those are
when you
my
see
thoughts.
my budget, I've included a part-time position solely for support of meetings, videos, and uploading that content and doing this position in that budget. So when you get to MIS budget, you will see the true cost.
And do you think, now that I've laid out all these bodies in this spreadsheet, do you think that part-time position would cover, do you have an idea of about how many bodies you think it would, committees, commissions, or boards you think it would cover? I'm curious.
I guess I'm not 100% sure exactly how that would lay out. I mean, some of the committees now, like Simon's, being a smaller group, is actually just doing Zoom on their own, is able to record that. It's just not going out online at this point, but they are offering it. HHS is in a small enough room that the OWL device that's in front of you here captures all the audio effectively, and HHS really doesn't have to have us necessarily there for support staff. The same thing here, if the room was laid out in a better organization where the chair always sat in the same spot, different things like that, where we could lay out some cameras and have microphone arrays from the ceiling, you necessarily wouldn't have to have, again, staff all the time. There is the other piece where, getting it up to YouTube and some of those different things does take some time, but it's not adding on all those hours necessarily, because some of the committees, being small, could handle just being able to come into a room. And the technology has evolved where we can buy equipment where you walk in, you click a button on an iPad on the wall, and it just starts the meeting and starts the recording. So, I mean, it's just, we would have to make some investment into that if that was the route we wanted to go.
And if you look, the proposed borrowing for Fund 92 next year has $20,000 to do that.
And I forgot to add, Sean, the county board to that number of days, and that's excluding November, so it's 11 days the county board meet roughly, and that's added up now to 124 days. But and then that, I don't know how many other days, because we don't do weekends, but sometimes meetings are at the call of the chair and it could be at a different location. And then I also thought that there was guidance, like, didn't finance and personnel put out guidance on like who needed to be video recorded, resumed? Was that Clint's? Was that
Yes.
administrator direction? So there is some guidance right now on who should.
That's Mr. Chair, on that issue.
Yeah, so that's the COVID-19 plan, which was recommended by the administrator and adopted by the county board.
That is correct.
And that was there were 4 meetings. That was the county board, finance and personnel rules and resolutions. And what was the 4th one? Administrator transition committee?
I would have to look back. LAGC.
LEJC.
JC.
So those were the 4, those are already in an adopted policy.
Mr.
That's right.
Chair,
Yep, Mr. C.
I recall, I'm sure Barb does too, back in the previous administration, when Janetta was there, I recall, that's the time frame. I think this happened, that a memo was put out, I believe, over the signature of the county chair, that required that all departments are video recorded. No, something along those lines, certain departments.
It wasn't about video recording, it was about putting their agendas and minutes online.
Oh, putting their agendas and minutes online. That's correct. That's correct. I told you I'm having a little trouble with my synapse.
Well, what I'm wondering, just hearing this discussion, is maybe, obviously there's budgetary implications to this, and some of this hinges upon whether the Finance and Personnel Committee and the county board includes the additional funding for MIS, as well as the not only on the staffing side, but also on the infrastructure side. So I'm wondering if we should postpone this until December, because no changes could be made until, no significant changes could be made until additional funding comes through. But by December, we would know by then if the budget was adopted, and then it might be more appropriate to change a county board rule if we know that the funding's there.
Chairman, may I comment?
Oh, yes, of course. Yep, Mr. Brewer.
Remember, the requirement is that we have open meetings, which we have, that we post agendas, which we do, which we have minutes available of all meetings. Know what happened at the meeting, read the minutes. The video recording, audio together, I think is a step beyond what we're required, and I think we should delay a decision on this.
Okay, thank you.
I was going to make the motion to postpone.
Okay, so a motion by Supervisor Cosgrove to postpone. Do you mind if we include in that motion until December so that it's on our calendar so we know? Okay. So it's a motion to postpone until December.
Second motion.
And a second by Seat on that. Discussion on it, Mr. Severson.
In that motion, would the meeting materials, are we still going to talk about meeting materials next? Being uploaded to iPad or whatever?
Let's go ahead and I think the motion would be to put, so I never made that clear. So in the cover sheet, I have a recommended motion to amend rule number 3 and rule number 18 of the county board rules to include requirements for video recording of meetings and availability of meeting materials. So I think in that motion, it would be to postpone both number 3 and number 18, both topics, if that's understood by everyone, but I think we should be able to discuss that as part of the motion to postpone. So if you want to go ahead and speak to the meeting materials. Maybe we need to separate those out. I don't
I
know.
think-
I think that would be great.
You think we need to separate them out?
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, so the motion to postpone would be amending rule number 3 regarding video recording of meetings. Am I understanding it right now? We're
Say-
just talking about postponing the video recording issue, and then next we'll take up the availability of meeting materials.
I would like that, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know if the rest of the committee would like that. but-
Let's just check with, and yep, I'm seeing agreement from the people who made the motion and seconded the motion. So let's go ahead and vote on that motion to postpone amendment to rule number 3 on video recording of meetings until December. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion to postpone carries. So now let's discuss rule number 18. And what I did here is I added language to rule 18 that says meeting materials presented to any board, commission, or committee whose members are made up of a majority of supervisors shall be made available on the county's website unless materials are presented during a closed session. Materials shall be posted 24 hours in advance of a meeting, but in instances where additional materials are presented during the meeting, those additional materials shall be posted within 24 hours after the meeting has adjourned. So that's how I wrote the proposal. I'm not sure if, I think iPads kind of enter into this discussion too. So do you want to go ahead and take it from there, Supervisor Severson?
I just would be interested in getting some information. Like, I'm not on finance. I use this as an example. I'm not on finance and personnel, but I like being able to go on my iPad and see the same meeting materials that you're looking at that I get here, so I can become more informed on the decisions that you're making before it comes to county board.
Very
And-
good point.
And there's some on here that don't get uploaded on here, and I don't know if that's what the department heads do, and they just don't have the ability to do that, or we're just overlooking it, or it's a different thing. Like,
Mr.
because
Chairman,
you do get the minutes, you see what they're talking about, but then there might be like these other paper documents like Derek had today, where he shared community code, and some people may not be able to see that, and I like to see what they're talking about.
Yeah, and, so in the cover sheet, I did list out the committees that put meeting materials on iPads, and that's currently Administrator Transition, Child Support, Finance and Personnel, Health and Human Services, LEJC, Property, and Rules and Resolutions. So we currently have 7 committees that are putting their meeting materials online. Did I miss any?
You're 90% correct, but not all of the materials for like LAJC do go onto the iPad. Some of them aren't there until the day of the meeting, and they're presented in the meeting. And I think what yours says is that we would do it beforehand.
24 hours in advance, unless something new
Right.
comes up, which that's
But
going to
that's,
happen. So.
yeah, and Stacy is very, very good about emailing her report, but
Mm-hmm.
she emails it to you guys, and that doesn't necessarily go on to the iPad. So is that considered a document presented?
Yeah, right. So
That, and I'm not picking on, she does an excellent job of making sure the committee's well informed. But is that supposed to then go to the iPads?
And we don't currently have a policy.
Correct.
So it's sort of, again, kind of, how does this happen? We don't quite know. There's all these different ways. Mr. C?
Mr. Chairman, all documents presented at a committee level, or all documents which any member of the county board or a staff receives, is a public record. And I believe that all attachments and all materials that are integral to the meeting should be part of the posting of the minutes, either as an attachment or in some other fashion. And I also believe that those attachments and those supporting materials should be made available well in advance of the meeting, so that the committee members, board members, commission members have an opportunity to review and study them. It's impossible sometimes to look at a stack of papers that are handed out to arrive at the meeting and properly inform yourself of the issues. 24 hours is fine. I think it should be at least 72 hours.
Okay, so the way this is currently written too is it's about posting them on the county's website. Currently, I know more information goes on our iPads than the website, but then the public can't see it or staff members can't necessarily see it unless they were the staff that created the materials, of course, but there are sometimes other staff who are interested in materials that they didn't create. So I guess I think we need to be clear. Are we talking about the website or the iPads or both? I think that could get a little confusing if we
Well, the
don't make this.
website is accessible from the iPad,
I'm sorry,
correct?
what was
It
that?
is
Mark?
accessible, Don, but you do have more information on your iPad
Yes.
than what is put to the general public on the
That's true.
website. And the other thing that I would just ask that you perhaps consider is to say it would be posted within 24 hours after the meeting. If the meeting's on a Friday afternoon, could you just say the next business day?
Yeah.
Yeah, is
We
there
would
another way
appreciate
do we
that.
usually say 24 business hours in advance? Or how do you, I'm not sure
The
how to say it.
next business day, I think would be appropriate.
Shall be posted on the previous business day. Oh, I'm sorry, you're talking about the end of the sentence here. So within, so instead of saying additional, so this is the last sentence, material shall be posted 24 hours in advance of a meeting, but in instances where additional materials are presented during the meeting, additional materials shall be posted within one business day after the meeting has adjourned. Okay.
Okay, so I see that doesn't preclude a committee from having an in-committee rule that requires that the staff send out materials or mail outs at least 5 days in advance. That's separate from the business of posting. I follow you.
I understand what you're suggesting. Okay, that's helpful. Yeah, Supervisor Severson.
So are we having a discussion about posting the materials that we have on our iPads that we look in our packets onto a website for the public to view? I think we need to start out small and get a lot of the stuff uploaded first on just the county board supervisors, so they have the information. Like, we're all, as county board supervisors, charged with our personal information or public record, so we can give out those documents to anybody because we're charged with that, to do that. And the clerk is too. And somebody goes and asks for a copy of that, he says, well, you know what, here it is, they did discuss this, here's their packet. I think they're just making too much work for right now. I think we just need to get our supervisors informed first, because there's very few that are informed, in my opinion. So we
Okay,
need to
so
work on doing that.
I'm hearing a suggested change. So if everyone's looking at the document, in that paragraph, the second line, it says the county's website. I think what is being suggested here is to strike the words the county's website and replace it with county board supervisor iPads. Yeah. Okay, so I think maybe how we could handle this is let's go ahead and get a motion on the table to amend rule number 18 to include requirements for availability of meeting materials. And then we can go through the amendment process and make sure we're all on the same page about how this should be written. Okay, a motion by Cosgrove. Anyone want to second it?
Do we state the motion?
The motion is to amend rule number 18 of the county board rules to include requirements for availability of meeting materials.
And a second would, so I'm looking at just for county board supervisors and county employees. Okay,
Yep. Exactly.
and I'll second that.
Okay, so second by Severson. So now further discussion. Let's go ahead and do the motion to amend process. I'm hearing two potential motions to amend. So I think what would be appropriate here is for someone to make a motion to amend to strike the proposed words in the second line, the county's website, and replace those three words with county board supervisor iPads.
or folders or whatever.
Does either one work?
And just to make sure I'm on the tracking correctly, we're looking at this language, I'm sorry, right here, correct?
Yeah, so,
That spot?
yeah, and I'll read the whole sentence if that's more helpful. So as amended, if someone makes this motion to amend, it would read, meeting materials presented to any board, commission, or committee whose members are made up of a majority of supervisors shall be made available on county board supervisor iPads unless materials are presented during a closed session. That's how the amended sentence would read. So does anyone want to make that motion to amend? Okay, motion by Cosgrove,
I'll second.
second by Severson. Discussion on that amendment, motion to amend? All those in favor of the motion to amend, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion to amend carries. And then I think the second motion to amend that would be in order here would be, where's it at? So the last sentence, the last line, we'd be striking the words 24 hours and replacing it with the words 1 business day. So the sentence would now read, materials shall be posted 24 hours in advance of a meeting, but in instances where additional materials are presented during the meeting, additional materials shall be posted within 1 business day after the meeting has adjourned. So who would like to make that motion to amend?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Luck,
Second.
second by Seat. All those in favor of the motion to amend, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Okay, so now we have a motion that has been twice amended. Does anyone need me to restate the motion as amended? Okay, so all those in favor of the amended motion, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Okay, so that carries. So that will be going forward to the county board at this month's meeting. So thank you everyone for the
Sean,
discussion on that. Yep.
this doesn't change what you're already doing though with those that are being posted to the web, correct?
No, it is not. It doesn't, we don't have anything that prohibits a committee from doing that or a department head from doing that. Okay, so that takes us to agenda item number 9, future agenda items. Does anyone have any future agenda items? Mr. Severson.
Future agenda item I would like to see would be looking at resolution 06-28, the Code of Ethics, and review and update and possibly reword that for us.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Seat, do you have any? Mr. Cosgrove? Ms. Luck?
I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 10, adjournment. Will be adjourning to the first Thursday in September at 10 a.m. Looking for a motion to adjourn to that date.
What date in September?
I don't
Is that
know.
Fair Day? Is that Fair Day?
The first Thursday
Yeah,
is the 2nd, so it'd be September 2nd.
yeah, that's Fair Day.
Does that work?
September 2nd, okay.
September
Yep.
2nd. Okay. Who would like to make that motion? Motion by Seat. Second by Cosgrove. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.